I still vividly remember that day, the day Michael first came to my cafe. It was a misty Thursday morning when a man walked into the small cafe where I worked as a waitress. With his refined features and intellectual air, he sat by the window, quietly studying the menu. His tall, slender frame carried an air of elegance. "Good morning. Have you decided on your order?" He responded to my question with a gentle smile. "I'll have a house blend coffee and a blueberry muffin," he said, his voice carrying a pleasant warmth. That was my first encounter with Michael Westbrook. After that, he became a regular, visiting every Thursday morning. We naturally fell into conversation, discussing his work at the investment bank and my dreams. When I shared that I had to drop out of college due to financial difficulties, he accepted it without a hint of judgment. When I told him about my dream of owning my own cafe, he listened intently with a serious expression. "That's a wonderful dream, Olivia," he said, genuinely supporting my aspirations. His words brought tears to my green eyes. Coming from a family of teachers, I wasn't raised in wealth. But I grew up in a loving family that taught me the importance of honesty and hard work. Michael seemed to truly understand and appreciate these values. The first 6 months of our relationship were like a dream. We spent weekends visiting art museums and enjoying picnics in the park. Michael would compliment me, saying, "When your light brown hair catches the sunlight, you look like an angel." Oddly though, Michael rarely talked about his family. Looking back, perhaps that should have been the first warning sign. His sudden proposal was the happiest moment of my life. However, my first meeting with his mother Beverly right afterward felt like hitting a wall of ice. With her perfect hair and makeup, dressed in luxury brands, she looked me up and down appraisingly. Her dignified bearing clearly reflected her elite Boston background. "Well, Michael. This is..." Her trailing words sent chills down my spine. That evening, I also met his sister Ashley. Dressed in the latest fashion and successful as a social media influencer, she directed an obviously contemptuous look at me. "A cafe waitress." The words dripped with disdain. As the owner of a high-end boutique, perhaps my very existence was an uncomfortable glare to her. Still, our love for each other led us to marriage. While Michael could be indecisive at times and seemed heavily influenced by his family, I believed his love for me was genuine. 2 years after our marriage, our son Noah was born, just 6 months ago. With Michael's help, I was also able to open my dream cafe, Sweet Morning. Though we maintained the appearance of a harmonious family on the surface, tensions beneath were growing day by day. The weekly family dinners at mother-in-law's mansion felt like torture. While she held the title of Charity Foundation Director, there seemed to be little actual charitable work. It appeared to be merely a tool to maintain her upper-class facade. Ashley continued posting family photos on social media that intentionally excluded me, which pained me each time I saw them. Her posts always included the hashtag Westbrook family, but there was no place for me in them. Her social circle was exclusively limited to upper-class youth, and she refused any contact with people of different class, like me, outside of family obligations. However, my adorable son's smile and Michael's kindness sustained me. The cafe was doing well, with regular customers appreciating my warmth. I wasn't one to give up easily. No matter how cold others were, I was determined to respond with love and sincerity. Who could have imagined that those peaceful days would crumble in such a way? Looking back, perhaps it was all planned. I had no way of knowing the true nature of the darkness hidden beneath the name of Westbrook family tradition. I still clearly remember the morning I confirmed my pregnancy. When the drugstore pregnancy test showed positive, my heart filled with joy. The morning sunlight streaming through the window felt warm, like hope for the future. When I told Michael, he showed a childlike innocent smile and hugged me. "I'm going to be a papa," he said, his words overflowing with pure joy. However, announcing it to the Westbrook family took place in a completely different atmosphere. We shared the news of my pregnancy in mother-in-law's luxurious sitting room. In that space surrounded by 18th century antique furniture, I didn't miss how mother-in-law's expression twisted for a moment across the heavy mahogany table. At that instant, I felt as if the room's temperature dropped several degrees. Sitting in her Louis XVI-style chair, mother-in-law looked like a queen passing judgment. "Aren't we in a hurry?" Ashley's sarcastic words broke the silence. She took a sip of 1982 Bordeaux from her expensive Baccarat champagne glass with an elegant gesture. "In our family, we usually proceed with more caution," she said, her Chanel tweed jacket somehow amplifying the weight of her words. I didn't yet understand the gravity of those words. During my pregnancy, mother-in-law's interference grew stronger day by day. The phrase, "Westbrook family heir," was repeated like a mantra. Detailed instructions came constantly, from choice of hospital to dietary restrictions. Even Massachusetts General Hospital was dismissed as not good enough by mother-in-law. "This child is not just any baby," mother-in-law said while adjusting her expensive Hermes scarf. "This is a being who will inherit the blood of the Westbrook family with its 300-year history. We're a family that has sent 5 generations to Princeton University." Her words carried an overwhelming pressure. I hadn't yet noticed the dangerous obsession lurking behind those words. Compared to my modest upbringing, daily life here was like another world. Meals were prepared by a private chef, with maids maintaining the mansion 24 hours a day. In such an environment, I gradually felt like I was losing myself. Meanwhile, Ashley's search for a marriage partner wasn't going well. She couldn't find someone who met her exacting standards even among Boston's upper class. Though she continued hosting lavish parties with Manhattan socialites, she seemed to grow more frustrated with each one. Her social media posts gradually took on a darker tone. The importance of preserving family tradition. The meaning of pure blood. Sensing big changes coming this Thanksgiving. Judgment for those who taint tradition. Such cryptic words began filling her Instagram. Her account, with over 100,000 followers, received numerous sympathetic comments from upper-class youth. As the due date approached, mother-in-law's visits to the hospital became more frequent. Her appearance stepping out of a Mercedes-Benz S-Class became a topic among hospital staff. Her high-handed attitude toward doctors and nurses created a heavy atmosphere throughout the ward. She gave orders to medical staff with an intimidating manner that suggested, "These are the people involved in my grandchild's birth," like a medieval aristocrat. "Prepare the finest linens, visiting hour restrictions don't apply to me." Such unreasonable demands were continuously presented to the hospital. After the birth, mother-in-law began staying in the hospital room constantly. There was something abnormal about her obsession with monopolizing Noah. "This child is the hope of our bloodline," she would murmur with an eerie resonance. Even feeding times were conducted under her strict supervision. Then, a week before Thanksgiving, news of Ashley's broken engagement pushed family tensions to their peak. Her fiancé was a promising lawyer from Harvard Law School, but mother-in-law wouldn't approve him because his family immigrated from Ireland just 3 generations ago. A marriage with mismatched family backgrounds was doomed from the start, mother-in-law said coldly, fixing Ashley with a gaze as cold as a Tiffany diamond. However, it was clear that these words were also aimed at my marriage to Michael. Mother-in-law's behavior became increasingly strange day by day. She was seen spending late nights in the study, poring over old family trees and records. In the leather-bound study that had existed since the 1800s, she immersed herself in ancient documents as if searching for something. Her eyes held a touch of madness as she repeated the word tradition like a mantra. According to the maid's testimony, she was also seen walking around the mansion late at night, muttering phrases like, "Protect the pure blood," and "Judgment for those who taint tradition." Particularly concerning was the change in how she looked at Noah. The loving grandmother's gaze had disappeared, replaced by something else, something unfathomable that I couldn't understand. "This child has a great mission," she would murmur in an ice-cold voice. Thanksgiving morning. Preparations for a 50-person party were underway at mother-in-law's mansion. As staff from the high-end catering company Le Petit Jardin came and went, and New York's top florists decorated the mansion with seasonal flowers, I watched with an uneasy feeling. Under the magnificent baccarat crystal chandelier, mother-in-law played the perfect hostess. Dressed in a Chanel tweed suit, she gave directions with the air of a society queen. However, behind her fake smile for the guests, her eyes emitted a strange light. Ashley moved around the mansion with a sullen expression, occasionally casting meaningful glances toward the 19th-century original fireplace. Michael was preoccupied with work calls, showing no sign of noticing my anxiety. With an important Goldman Sachs deal deadline approaching, his attention was completely focused on work. I held my son close, fighting against the growing sense of foreboding in my chest. Who could have imagined that this party would forever change our lives? And who could have foreseen that the horrifying truth about the tradition the Westbrook family had maintained for 300 years would be revealed? The flames in the old fireplace flickered ominously, seeming to greedily devour the air as if seeking something. By 5 p.m., the Westbrook mansion had transformed into a venue for the finest feast. Under the warm light of the enormous chandelier, upper-class ladies and gentlemen arrived one after another at the mansion. Luxury cars, Lexus, Bentley, Rolls-Royce, lined up at the portico. I stood watching the great hall while holding Noah. In the space lit by soft candlelight, the aroma of turkey, cranberry sauce, and traditional side dishes wafted through the air. Maids served champagne to guests from silver trays. "What a wonderful party," smiled a middle-aged woman in an elegant evening dress, her diamond necklace sparkling at her throat. "Oh, what an adorable baby." As I smiled back at her words, mother-in-law's voice rang out from behind. "Everyone, please gather round." Mother-in-law stood in the center of the great hall. Dressed in a deep emerald green dress with perfect makeup, she had the bearing of a true society queen. However, something different lurked in the depths of her eyes. "Thank you all for coming to our family's traditional Thanksgiving party today." About 50 guests gathered elegantly around mother-in-law. Michael finally put away his work phone and returned to us. Ashley stood by the fireplace with a tense expression. "First, let's take a family photo." At mother-in-law's words, we were gathered in front of the fireplace that had existed since the 19th century. A professional photographer set up his tripod, preparing to capture the perfect shot. That's when it happened. Ashley suddenly began speaking with a trembling voice. "I have an important announcement for everyone," her voice echoed through the silent great hall. "Last week, My engagement was broken off. The venue fell silent. Ashley continued with tears in her eyes. The reason was, the family background wasn't suitable. At that moment, mother-in-law's expression froze. A silence as if time had stopped dominated the great hall. Yes, marriages with unsuitable family backgrounds cannot be allowed. Mother-in-law's voice spread through the space with an eerie resonance. She slowly turned toward me with a gaze like a predatory bird eyeing its prey. Especially those who would taint a traditional family line. I instinctively held Noah tighter. However, that was the worst choice. Mother-in-law suddenly started walking toward me. Her eyes were filled with madness beyond reason. To become a mother before my daughter. Her voice resonated like a low growl. And one who would taint the pure Westbrook bloodline at that. No one could react to the sudden turn of events. Mother-in-law approached me with surprising speed and tried to grab Noah. "Stop!" I screamed desperately. Michael shouted, "Mother," and tried to stop her, but Ashley grabbed his arm to interfere. "This child is a sacrifice to correct a mistake." With mother-in-law's mad words, she forcibly took Noah from my arms. I resisted desperately, but her strength, honed by years of yoga, was unexpectedly powerful. "Give him back. Give Noah back." My anguished screams echoed through the great hall. The guests stood frozen as if they were in a theater watching a show. Then came the worst moment. Mother-in-law displayed a defiant smile and held Noah up with both hands. The fireplace flames cast an eerie light on her face. "This is the righteous judgment of those who protect tradition." With those words, mother-in-law threw Noah toward the fireplace. It was like time stood still. I reflexively dove toward the fireplace. Hot, painful, but none of that mattered. Maternal instinct drove my body. "Noah!" My scream echoed through the mansion. Michael had finally broken free from Ashley's grip and was running toward the fireplace. Then, something unexpected happened. In the fireplace, the orange flames suddenly began emitting a bluish-white light. And an unbelievable sight unfolded. The flames swirled around Noah as if protecting him. Though my arms were burned, surprisingly, Noah's crying voice was strong and energetic. Why won't the flames obey?" Mother-in-law's scream echoed. Her expression was contorted with complete madness. Throughout generations, children of those who tainted the bloodline have been judged by these sacred flames. That confession brought new shock to the venue. Alarms sounded and sprinklers began activating. Guests in luxurious dresses screamed and began evacuating. I held Noah tightly and moved away from the fireplace. Though my whole body shook with the pain of burns, I couldn't stop crying at the sight of my son safe and sound. "Olivia!" Michael rushed over. "Call an ambulance. Someone call an ambulance." Amid those cries, mother-in-law knelt before the fireplace, muttering in defeat. Why won't the flames do as I wish?" Ashley had already disappeared. As we later learned, she had been filming this moment on her smartphone, which became decisive evidence. The sound of sirens approached. The Thanksgiving night ended like a nightmare. However, this wasn't the end. Rather, it was just the beginning of our new battle. Looking up at the White Hospital's ceiling, I reflected on the chaos after the incident. When the ambulance sirens arrived at the mansion, the party guests had already hastily departed. The champagne glasses and turkey left behind, and the flooded Great Hall retained not a trace of the earlier elegant atmosphere. "Are you all right?" The paramedic checked my burns. Though I had minor burns on both arms, mysteriously, Noah was completely unharmed. In fact, he was laughing cheerfully. The police arrived moments later. "Beverly Westbrook, you're under arrest for attempted murder." As the officer's voice rang out, mother-in-law was handcuffed with a vacant expression. Her appearance was unimaginably different from the dignified society queen she had been just hours before. "This is tradition, a sacred ritual to protect the bloodline." Her incoherent words continued until the police car door closed. Michael stood dazed, watching the scene. Why did this happen? This was just the beginning of the Westbrook family's dark side coming to light. The investigation took unexpected turns. The video Ashley had filmed was discovered just before being uploaded to social media. Her smartphone revealed even more shocking message histories with mother-in-law. "Are the preparations for the Thanksgiving ritual ready? I've instructed that the fireplace be burned stronger than usual. Fire extinguishers have been moved to another room. This is a necessary sacrifice to protect pure blood." Furthermore, disturbing content was discovered in deleted posts from her social media accounts. "Ready to pay any price to protect tradition. Judgment time approaches for those who don't understand pure blood value. Everything will be set right this Thanksgiving." Ashley was arrested as an accomplice. During interrogation, she began to tell everything. The Westbrook family had a terrifying tradition that had continued for 300 years. The outward tradition that no other children could marry or have children before the eldest daughter's marriage was just for show. Behind it lay a cruel unwritten law that the first child of any violator must be judged by the Thanksgiving flames. "It's a tradition that's continued since 1723, Ashley testified during questioning. "The fireplace flames have been used as an instrument of judgment to protect pure blood." As the investigation continued, traces of similar incidents from the past emerged. The 1850s, 1923, 1967. In each case, young lives were lost in unexplained fires during Thanksgiving. All occurred in families where siblings had children before the eldest daughter's marriage. Mother became obsessed with a sense of mission after reading the diaries passed down through generations, Michael testified to the police. "I had no idea about such a cruel tradition." 2 weeks after the incident, a preliminary hearing was held. In the Massachusetts Supreme Court, mother-in-law wore a defiant smile. "This is not attempted murder," she stated firmly. "It's a sacred ritual to protect the family's pure bloodline." That statement became decisive evidence questioning her sanity. After a psychiatric evaluation, mother-in-law was diagnosed with severe delusional disorder. The final verdict sentenced mother-in-law to 20 years and Ashley to 10 years in prison. After the verdict, Michael resolved to completely break away from family traditions. "We don't need to be bound by insane traditions anymore." Most of the Westbrook family's vast assets were donated to victim compensation and charitable causes. Michael left the investment bank, and we decided to start a new life in a different town. 1 year after the incident, my cafe, Sweet Morning, had become beloved in the community. Its warm coffee aroma and heartfelt service earned a reputation, keeping it full of customers daily. Michael had started teaching piano to local children. His gentle smile had completely returned. "Mama." 2-year-old Noah runs to me excitedly. His innocent smile helps heal the nightmares of that day bit by bit. Looking at the sunset through the cafe window, I reflect. True family bonds aren't about blood purity. Love and trust are what really form a family. Sometimes, I remember the bluish-white flames from that fireplace. Why did the flames protect Noah that day? It must have been a miracle of love, I whispered, hugging my son. Outside the window, trees announcing a new season swayed gently in the wind. Thus ended the 300-year curse. But perhaps our story was just beginning. As a new family tale based on love and trust.